This past week, we've had stark warnings from leasing firms that a ticking time bomb is about to go off on us. We've seen car makers narrowly miss ZEV mandate fines using loopholes, and we've seen a cry for help from the designers at Jaguar. A packed week indeed. Here's everything you need to know to be fully up to speed. Now, it's not exactly news, is it? Most of us are probably aware that electric vehicles, they tend to depreciate faster than their petrol or diesel equivalents. Now, the way in which leasing companies have historically been able to deal with this is they'll offset the impact of this depreciation with the proceeds of healthy petrol and diesel values. But that's okay when EVs make up about 10-15% of the lease contracts. That figure is now hovering right around the 40% mark. That makes these leases just unsustainable. Leasing companies are finding themselves caught between the ambitious ZEV mandate, this push for electric vehicles, and the realities of the market, the realities of what people are actually buying. The constant barrage of discounts on new EVs means that residual values are pretty likely to remain unstable as well. Now, the reason that this is so significant is because the vast majority of electric vehicles that we see on the road, well, they're supplied as leases one way or another. And if we see the inevitable price hike to account for these losses, then the most lucrative market sector for electric vehicles is very likely to suffer and not do as well as it has been doing. Now, it's not looking much better on the infrastructure side either. Let's take a look. So BT, who gained a slot in last week's news video as well for their order of 3,500 all-electric vans, the largest electric fleet order that we've had to date in the UK, by the way. Well, they're back once again, but it's not looking so rosy this week. BT axes EV charger scheme after installing just one out of 60,000. Now, this was quite a novel idea. They were taking these old green broadband boxes, you've probably seen them dotted about, and they were basically putting all the tech gubbins in there needed for a charger and then linking up a little curbside plug-in. Now, the one that was installed, it's about 20 minutes that way in East Lothian, it looks like that's also been taken out of commission recently. And the reason behind this is cited as slow government funding and a stalling uptake of electric vehicles. That's according to this article. Now, the thing is, you would think this is exactly the kind of initiative that the government, given their goals and their mandates, would be getting behind. Instead, they're just pushing manufacturers to sell more and more electric vehicles. Next, let's talk about a group who seemed to have all the headlines for a little while and then they disappeared. They're probably quite glad to have the hiatus, to be honest. Leaked letter reveals Jaguar designers' doubts about controversial rebranding. Now, this is a bit of a sad story because it confirms what I and probably many of you had thought, that there are people at Jaguar, engineers, designers and so on, who care about the brand, who care about the cars, the customers, the fans, the heritage, and they've just had the rug pulled out from under them. Anyone who's worked in the corporate world can probably relate to that in some way. No consultation, just decisions made, and you need to live with it. Let me read a little extract from this for you. So, in the leaked letter obtained by Autocar, Jaguar's in-house designers expressed dissatisfaction with the decision to outsource branding work to Accenture Interactive, a move that followed the 2021 acquisition of Jaguar's former creative agency, Spark 44. Signed by as many as 30 members of the design team, the letter criticised the new logo's design and the decision to rely on external input for a project so closely tied to Jaguar's identity. Jaguar had to change. They had to do something different, but this was not it. And I think consultant with these guys who do care about the brand, do care about the heritage, this would have been a good step. Instead, they've just turned into a bit of a laughingstock, haven't they? So yes, it's what we all thought, but I thought that did deserve a little bit more airtime. Bit of a crying shame, really. Next up, some kind of good news. It looks like the ZEV stick is not going to be needed this year, at least yet anyway. So many manufacturers didn't hit the 22% electric vehicle target in 2024. You may already know that. Although it's becoming clear that major loopholes that can be exploited, or flexibilities as they're termed, they're going to play a massive part in this ZEV mandate. Manufacturers can purchase credits, they can borrow them from future years, or they can even buy them from other manufacturers, companies like Tesla, who obviously have them in abundance. they can sell them to the highest bidder effectively. Now, this might seem like good news for manufacturers because they are avoiding that £15,000 fine per vehicle, but do bear in mind 2024 was a year of unprecedented, unsustainable discounts trying to shift these EVs. It's in the region of about £4 billion currently, and it isn't looking any better this year. So although this is quite good news, it's obvious there's a lot more needs to be done. And that doesn't bode well for our next story. Motorists are rejecting electric cars. It's clear hybrids are the answer. Now, typically, at this point in the video, this is where I would include some sales and registration figures from the SMMT, but given this is the middle of January, we're not into February yet, we don't have them. So I thought this was quite an interesting article, an interesting talking point to take its place, because if you look at last year's figures, it's quite right. It's clear that hybrids were the answer for a lot of people. Hybrids outsold electric vehicles, I think, just about every single month. And you can see why. Because you don't need a dedicated parking space or driveway, as many people do not have, in order to charge your car. The other option, if you don't have one and you've got an electric vehicle, well, it's just these really expensive public chargers, but obviously people don't want to do. So hybrids, I've spoke about this before, particularly the mild hybrids, the ones that you don't need to plug in, they just seem like such an obvious solution for now, because from a user point of view, you don't need to plug them in, you do get better mileage, you get amazing range out of these cars, and from an environmental standpoint, it gets everyone into cleaner, burning, efficient cars quicker. Surely that's the whole goal, that's what we all want. Also think about cost. One of the big problems with electric vehicles is the cost can be prohibitive. They cost more to buy, and that's because they've got a honking great lithium-ion battery strapped to the underside of them. Now that makes up a lot of the expense of the car. So with these mild hybrids or even hybrids, there's a lot less battery to pay for. There's a lot less mining. They can roll them out quicker. It's going to bring the prices down. It just seems like a complete no-brainer to me, but it's an interesting talking point because when it comes to the government, they obviously don't view it this way, because if you look at the ZEV mandate, there's no room for hybrid electric vehicles, even the plug-in ones, and also their consultation that they done on Christmas Eve at the tail end of last year, it suggested that hybrids are not going to be allowed for sale after 2030 or 2035 if they roll back the petrol and diesel ban, whereas we originally thought they were. So yeah, it just seems like a real trick is being missed, but let me know what you think in the comments section below. Let's go on to our final story here, and I've kept it a bit more lighthearted to finish us off. So this chap here, Mercedes-Benz EV owner slams charging fine in deal car park. An electric car owner is calling on council bosses to be reasonable over a £70 fine. Now I'm laughing here, but it does highlight quite a serious flaw. So this guy, Tony, he turned up my car park, he took up an electric car bay to charge his electric car, but his phone was dead. Now you need your phone in order to start the charging process. So he left the car in the bay, walked home, put the kettle on, had a cuppa, walked back with his now charged phone to find a £70 fine had been slapped on his car. Now, it is a complete flaw. Imagine having to have a charged, connected phone with data in order to fuel your car. It is flawed, isn't it? Now, that's all we've got time for today. Thank you so much for joining. I really do appreciate it. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, do hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and always let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I'll see you for the next one.